to see what's happening around you. We are likely to come to your area this morning with our reporters on the ground. We are going to be speaking to them to get a sense of what's happening. If you're feeling too cold and you're not going to work, we'll also meet you on the road. And right here in Nairobi, we'll try and do a situation check for you and find out if the new USSD number for Nairobi County is working and you're not having trouble paying your rates and parking and all that coming up. But stay tuned for this conversation because this is what you need to hear. Plus, at the back of the feature we ran yesterday, you really would like to be part of this conversation. So join the conversation, tweet at NTV at Ken Mijungu. We'll try and sample some of them. But first, let's take a look at some of the stories that made your headlines yesterday. And we begin from different types of wars. From tea wars that you already know about, the governor who was uprooting some tea in some area, to battle over pay, and the National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale now says Parliament will not backtrack on a decision by the Parliamentary Service Commission to have legislators paid house allowances. Duale argues MPs are also state officers and they too deserve these perks and do as other state officers. He further says members of Parliament were ready to fight for it, accusing the SRC of politicizing that issue.
SRC cannot have its cake and eat it. Either as a country, we will agree in principle that all state officers, whether they are serving in the executive, whether they are serving in the county governments, whether they are serving in the judiciary, whether they are serving in the legislature, that all state officers shall not benefit from house allowance. And we can agree as a country. But SRC cannot purport to say that certain offices which are held by state officers across all the three arms of government and across the two levels of government, some can enjoy house allowance benefits while others will not.
All right, let's take you now to the matters concerning teachers. And the leadership of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, now says it will be recording a statement with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations today and will be requesting for investigations to be done on the splinter outfit for women. The Kenya Women Teachers Association, that's KEWOTA, which NAT claims has been deducting monies from teachers illegally. NTV's education reporter Sharon Muranga with that update.
The largest teachers' union in the country may be sailing through the rough seas. Its leadership is now only steering into the rapids. Following formation of a splinter women outfit, the Kenya Women Teachers Association, KEWOTA, that disassociated itself from NAT.
Why has this been done behind our backs as NAT? Most of our members are female, they're lady teachers. So when somebody says they want to take all the lady teachers to join them, it's a cause of worry.
In an attempt to mend the widening fissures, NAT leaders say they will tomorrow record complaints against the new outfit with the DCI.
So any money deducted from a teacher without their knowledge to join an organization that they don't know, we will treat it as an illegality. There must be somebody, either in government or at the Teacher Service Commission, who is helping them, who is giving them a hand to do this, because it's very hard in this country to start an organization like that and quickly be able to start deducting money. It's not possible.
In its defense, KEWOTA says their mandate is to deal with issues affecting female teachers and that they are in no competition with NAT.
Why should somebody be afraid? If I can eat, if I can get something, a donor funding this activity for the women, this activity for KNUT, why do you want it everything for yourself?
2 weeks ago, NAT started a campaign dubbed Okoa Payslip ya Mwalimu with an intention to ensure monies are not deducted from teachers' payslips haphazardly. At the helm of KEWOTA's leadership is a mixture of women who are still members of NAT while others are retired. Sharon Muranga, NTV.
Very interesting indeed. And the question is, how did they get to have the monies deducted and remitted to them? That's an important question that even Nat is asking itself. The reason why they're recording that statement with the DCI this morning. And more than 9,000 principals of secondary schools across the country are expected to face off with top education chiefs on a number of pertinent issues facing them as a week-long Head Teachers Conference starts today in Mombasa. And principals have been unhappy with the government for failing to provide funds for infrastructure to support the 100% transition policy.
Apart from looking at 100% transition, definitely Kenya Secondary School Heads Association will be also interrogating the CBC that is in the country. And we want to look at how we are ready for it at the secondary level. We are aware in the next 3 years, the pupils will be getting into the junior secondary, and therefore it is important that as the secondary sector we are able to pronounce ourselves on what our expectations are and how we would wish that sector also to be handled.
Well, the new generation 1,000 shilling note could be available in your ATMs as soon as this morning. This comes at the bank, or as the Bank of Tanzania, which is issued a special notice to the other banks, announced it had frozen the Central Bank of Kenya's cash collection account in light of CBK's move to roll out the new currencies and to curb the illicit cash flow. Now, the government of Tanzania also suspended the exchange of its currency with that of Kenya. CBK says it will coordinate the move to scrap the 1,000 shilling banknotes with its counterparts in the region where the Kenyan currency is widely accepted and used for payment. The move to demonetize the old 1,000 shilling banknotes has triggered a legal storm with 2 court petitions already filed challenging the use of the statue of the founding president, Jomo Kenyatta, in the notes and the lack of public participation. A section of members of parliament, however, dismissed these concerns.
But they have not consulted lawyers like me. Because lawyers like me will tell them that the picture in that note is not of Jomo Kenyatta. That is the impression of the sculpture.
I have looked at, I have thumbed the note. I have not seen anything very different from what ultimately the Constitution intended.
Away from that, let's take you to Mombasa. And police there have shot and killed a 25-year-old man believed to be the ringleader of a criminal gang terrorizing the residents of Kisauni and Likoni. Dula, alias Captain J, was the leader of the Wakili Wao gang. 3 of his accomplices, however, escaped on foot. And as NTV's coast reporter Kevin Mutai reports, 7 other suspect criminals have been taken into custody as the operation to raid the area of the killer gangs intensifies.
For a city living under the shadow of violent gangs, the death of Dula alias Captain J stood out. He said to be the alleged mastermind and the ringleader of the Wakali Wao, a criminal gang that has been terrorizing residents of Kisauni and Likoni. He was gunned down in a confrontation with police at Minazi Mingi in Kisauni. Witnesses say he attempted to attack a police officer with a machete when ordered to surrender.
Ameambiwa na huo polisi, surrender, akakataa. Akaambiwa keti chini, akakataa. Paka mimi mwenyewe nimemwambia kakasi ukae chini, akakataa katakata.
His relatives say they have many times implored him to change his ways.
Nilijaribu kumlekeza njia ilo sawa, hakuweza kuongoka. Sitakuwa na raha, lakini ukweli wenyeji bila shaka wamepata furaha kwa sababu ni kijana amesumbua sana.
It is no fun killing a human being. I wish their parents can take responsibilities, talk to their children so that they can change. I believe they can change, but unfortunately, if they don't change, there are the consequences. Yeah. So, crime has a consequence.
7 other suspects linked to the gang have been arrested and are being detained in different police stations. Residents of Lakeview Estate lynched another member of the gang that has been on the prowl at night The gang is said to be made up of more than 20 boys.
Shida kubwa inayotusumbua kabisa, inaobadilisha vijana sana ni unga. Hizi drugs ndo zinabadilisha watu hapa. Sababu hata yeye Dula alikuwa kijana mmoja mzuri akianukia. Akicheza mpira vizuri, lakini madawa hizo drugs ndo zilimbadilisha.
Businessmen in areas such as Magogoni, Barsheba and Bakarini have been counting their losses, and some have shut down in fear of their lives.
Walitufungia mlango kinje, wakaingia ile nyumba jirani pale, wakavunja mlango wa mendo, wakaingia paka ndani, wakabeba mtungi wa gas na nguo.
Wanaweza kama swara, na tunashindwa kama tungekuwa na askari karibu na sisi hapa, hawa watu tungewanasa.
Residents now fear the death of the gang leader could lead to retaliatory attacks and are asking police to beef up night patrols.
Police officers maintain that they will not relent in their efforts to eliminate criminal elements in areas of Likoni and Kisauni constituencies, and at the same time urging members of the public to come forward with information that will help them in their operations. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
Right, from Mombasa back to studio, and this morning, as I mentioned, we're going to be discussing about matters concerning the children, and specifically ahead of this year's Day for the African Child, which will be themed Humanitarian Action in Africa, Children Rights First. And to help me with this conversation, I'm going to be speaking to Brenda Etuke, who is from Compassionate International Kenya, Jennifer Kaberi, who is the director at Mtoto News, and Pascal Musila, who is a programs director of programs, director of programs. Which one is which? Director of programs and quality at SOS Children's Village. But before I speak to them, let's, all right, I'm told that we have to go to the interview because we wanted to give you a sneak peek to the feature we're in, but at the tail end of our discussion this morning, we're definitely going to run that feature again by Charity Mwangi. It's quite enlightening, and I bet they all watch this. So let me welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to NTV Today and begin our discussion. And let's just set the record straight. You all work for children organization, yes, right? Specifically, your roles and the organizations first before we speak about this. Let me begin with you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Pascal Mailu. I'm the Director of Programs and Quality at SOS Students Villages. At SOS, we target children who have lost parental care, as well as those who are at risk of losing parental care.
Okay.
And we provide them with a loving home.
Okay.
And a stable family.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
At SOS?
Yes.
All right. Jennifer.
So, my name is Jennifer. I work with Mtoto News. Mtoto News is a digital company that is using technology to amplify children's voices. So because we believe children have voices and they need to be heard. So we use digital platforms to ensure that children's voices are heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Brenda?
Yeah, my name is Brenda Etuke, and I'm a child expert at Compassion International. And in Compassion, it's an international organization, Christian, and we support children who are living in spiritual, economic, and social, emotional poverty. So we seek to try to address those challenges and help them to come out of that and become fulfilled Christian adults.
All right. I don't know where to begin this conversation, but definitely the most obvious thing to ask is this theme, humanitarian action in Africa. Action, to me, it's something that mirrors perhaps a missing link in the society. That's why this is put as such. But before I do this, I want to play a feature that we ran last night, just briefly, because this is one of the things. It's not something that we want to hear, especially people with children, but it happens a lot, and it saddens many people's hearts that this is going on. So I'd like to play this, and then we'll come back to the general discussion, because this is not what we're discussing. But defilement cases in Makueni County have been at an all-time high. The lack of stable family dynamics in most homes has contributed to the increase in the number of rapes and incest cases. Prosecution of the crimes encounters great opposition from family members who feel that the family name is at stake. Now, the victim is always left to handle the trauma, with the abuser in most cases going scot-free. Charity Mwangi visited the county and examined the extent of the problem that has leaders greatly troubled. We'd like to warn our viewers now that the content of the story may be disturbing.
The rains have transformed the landscape in this county of Makueni. Nature's green carpet now covers the rise and fall of the hills, adding to the hidden beauty that shows up every rainy season and covering the county's agricultural potential that has remained hidden. The harsh reality unfolds during the dry season, when the green will give way to dry, dusty, bare and unproductive grounds. It is during this period of want that mothers are forced to leave their children and travel to the urban centers to seek employment to feed their young ones. Their absence from the home marks the beginning of the nightmare for the unfortunate children who fall prey to men who steal their innocence and scar them for life. Joy identifies the man as her father, even though he did not sire her. Her abuse at his hands that much more traumatic and unfathomable.
Sasa hapo mwezi wa 5 nilitoka shuleni kitu kama saa 11 hivi saa 12. Nikaenda kwa nyumba. Wakati wa kuingia hapo kwa nyumba nilichange nguo, ndo ni babangu akachukua blanketi akanifunika nayo macho, alafu akalala na mimi. Ndo mimi nilijua ni yeye wakati alikuwa anakusanya hizi vitambaa zimeshika damu. Sasa nilikuwa nasikia uchungu kwa sababu ni yeye alikuwa amelala na mimi wa kwanza, hapa kuwa na mtu mwingine.
This was the first time he violated her innocence. It will not be the last.
Mwezi wa 6 akakuja akalala na mimi tena. Nilikuwa nimetoka shule, sababu siku hiyo kwa watoto walikuwa wanaenda mahali, na alafu mimi sikuwa naenda sababu mamangu hakuwa anaenda, sikuwa na mzazi anaenda. Alafu mimi nilikuwa mbele ya watoto, nikaingia kwa nyumba tena, nikampata hapo. Nilipompata hapo ndo akalala na mimi tena.
It would happen a third time. Joy has the dates of the incidents engraved on her mind. On the 27th of October 2018, she was sent home from school to collect her fee balance.
Nikaenda mahali mamangu alikuwa anafanya kazi, nikapata hayuko. Nikasema acha niende mahali babangu anafanyanga kazi, niangalia kama ako huko. Nikaenda nikamwambia, pigia mam simu, umwambie nimefukuziwa pesa na mwalimu. Akaniambia ingia huku ndani, ako hapa. Aliponiambia hivyo mimi nikaingia. Nilipoingia akafunga gate kwa haraka. Alafu alipofunga hiyo gate ndo akaingia, akanivuta na nguvu akanipeleka kwa nyumba yenye alikuwa analala. Akaenda akanitoa nguo ya ndani na akalala na mimi.
Every time it would happen, her abuser will threaten her. He will follow through with psychological torture by hiding household items that will pass for potential weapons of murder, making the threats more real and frightening.
Anakuja ananiita, ananiambia, naona umeambia mamako. Ile kisu anauliza, nilichukua nikapeleka kwa fundi tengenezwe, nikuje niwaue, alafu mimi nijinyonge. Na aliponiambia hivyo, Mimi sikuwa nasema, mimi nilikuwa nakaa nikistuka kila wakati, sababu amechukua kisu, anasema anakuja kutuua.
Her heavy steps and labored walk lets out a secret that Joy would rather not share. The sexual abuse has resulted in a pregnancy, a protruding stomach, a constant reminder of the torment visited on her young life. Events she would rather forget. She was unaware of her status until January this year.
Ninapa hivi mwezi wa kwanza ndo nikapatwa na damu, ilikuwa mbaya kabisa. Iliponipata hivi ndo ikakuja nikaambia mamangu kuna damu inatoka. Ilikuwa mbaya sana, hata singekaa hivi. Nikiekewa always zinatoka. Zinajaa damu hadi inapita. Nikapelekwa huko Kitise Mwania. Nikapelekwa huko kwa hospitalini. Nilipopelekwa hapo ndo nikaenda nikasema mamangu atoke nje nijieleze. Mimi nikaenda nikajielezea. Daktari alisema niko na mimba. Nakasema hakuna kitu anaweza nisaidia nikikaa hivyo. Sasa tukapelekwa hotel, nikaenda nikapigwa picha. Mtoto akapatikana ni mkubwa. Nikasemekana hawezi katolewa. Na aliposemeka daktari alisema hawezi katolewa, kasemekana kwanza ndakojewa nizae, alafu nirudishwe shule mwezi wa kwanza 2020. Na hizi uchungu kwa sababu msichana wangu umekatika, bado niko shule sijamaliza. Ingekuwa ni secondary ingekuwa sawa, lakini saa hizi ni primary na bado niko mdogo. Na miaka yangu ni dogo sana.
Joy's stepfather has since been arrested, but this has done little to get her justice. Her stepfather's family wanted to solve the issue through traditional ways. Her mother's refusal to agree to this has seen them kicked out of her stepfather's home. Her maternal relatives also want nothing to do with them.
Hapa tunaishi mahali mamangu amezaliwa. Na hakuna amani. Amani haiko. Bado anaambiwa atoke aende. Mara zingine anaambiwa atoke na watoto wake wote na mizigo yake.
Joy's mother is battling feelings of guilt and regret. Her redemption is her sustained fight to get her daughter justice at any and all costs.
Mimi niliishi vibaya kabisa katika moyo wangu. Na pia niliishi vibaya katika maisha yangu. Mimi nikaamua sirudiani na yeye to divorce kabisa forever. Sababu ananiharibia mtoto wangu. Na alinioa na hao watoto, so huyo mtu siwezi ishi na yeye. I'm ready nikae na watoto wangu nikiwa peke yangu.
Joy's abuser is HIV positive. She has since taken the test once and found that she was negative. Medics have, however, advised that she needs to take another test to confirm her status. Her outlook on life is of a survivor and not a victim. She remains hopeful.
Shuleni sikuwa nafanya vibaya. Ilikuwa nakuja nambari moja hivi 2, 3 narudia hapo. Lakini hapo mbeleni ni Mungu tu atajua. Na Mungu akiniendelezea maisha, naweza tamani kuwa lawyer.
Right. There are 2 more cases that Charity sampled. Same, there was even a 9-year-old and then there's a 12-year-old. So it's basically it's the same thing. It's the same thing that the children told. And with hindsight that you watched this last night, I like your initial comments on what you watched. Let me begin with the gentleman. He's the only gentleman here in the panel. Yes.
Thank you, Ken. I must say this is a very sad phenomenon, and relating it to the theme of the Day of the African Child this year, humanitarian crisis in Africa, child rights first. I think these cases are precisely the reason as to why organizations like ours exist. Because For instance, in SOS, we try to build strong families and communities and to strengthen their resilience against humanitarian crisis. As you know, there are two types of crisis, humanitarian crisis. We have man-made that are as an outcome of our activities as mankind. And we also have natural disasters or crises. And so this case has a humanitarian angle in that we know there's a recurrent drought situation in the county, as well as other SL counties, arid and semi-arid counties in the country. And when the women especially are predisposed to go to look for water, to look for firewood, to look for livelihood generally, they leave their children vulnerable to cases of child abuse, sexual abuse, like you're saying, child labor, physical abuse. So I think it has a very major humanitarian angle.
Okay.
And I think that is why we are here.
That's why you're here.
And by extension, such children fall through the cracks and they lose the parental care that they have a right to.
Okay.
So we cannot leave such a child within the same family environment because the threat is within the family. The perpetrator is a father, a guardian.
Okay.
And so that is why we have programs in SOS that cater for such children who have lost parental care and love. And we provide alternative parental care and a family.
Okay.
Yes.
Jennifer.
So it's very saddening.
So I just want to build on what Pascal has said. You know, 75% of humanitarian crises in Kenya, especially as a result of climate crisis. It's not climate change anymore; it's climate crisis. So for us, I start thinking like how many rights of this child have been violated. The obvious one is the sexual violence. But she said something that broke my heart. I was telling my colleagues, I watched this thing in the morning, and she said, my childhood has been stolen. So her childhood, her right to just be a child has been stolen. You know, the right to her education, you know, has been stolen. You know, her right to a proper livelihood, her right to health, because being pregnant at 13 means that the whole health system has been compromised. So for me, it's the whole, when you look at this case, it's the humanitarian issue that comes in as government, as county, and I kudos to the governor for Makueni. He's doing a lot, and it's a good thing that he's doing. But he needs to say how can we be able to start ending some of these humanitarian crises like drought? How can you make families more resilient? How can we start planting more trees, or can we ensure that these mothers don't have to come to Nairobi to look for work and leave their girls to be played on by relatives, because these are very close people who are defiling these girls. So how can we be able to build the resilience of the family, the livelihood, to ensure that the family is a unit and does not predispose these girls to violence?
Predators.
Yes.
Brenda.
Yes, I think I just want to add to what my colleagues have said, that in humanitarian situations, unfortunately, this case has even become more. Unfortunately, in Kenya, I think it's becoming a crisis every day, that almost one child is abused every hour. And that's a challenge that we must deal as a country, because it means that we are constantly on a crisis, or children are constantly in a crisis, trying to solve situations, issues of pregnancy, FGM, even fires and natural disasters. And the other thing that is very important is the fact that abuse usually happens at home. Most 50% of abuse happens at home by person known to the child. And these are situations that are known. It's not new to Kenya, it's very common. And it raises a gap that we need to fill as a society, and a gap that every person needs to actually come to terms with, is how best can we be able to support these children? What can organizations do? What can the public even do? Because the benefit of public interest stories or cases like this, we call them public interest cases, is that they bring the situation and the scenario to the open. And that helps us to know which are the gaps that are actually in the society. What are the issues that children are actually facing today? And possibly, I can say there's healing and restoration if everyone can be able to address this challenge.
Okay, you've gone to the end with this. But let me bring, Pascal, looking at those statistics, 50% happen at home with someone familiar to the child. SOS, you said, it's lost parentage, right, of that love from the family. What do you do with the other 50%? Are they included in your statistics?
Yes, they're included because our strategies focus on first prevention, because in our programs we don't want cases to come so that we can respond to them.
Okay.
So we invest a lot in prevention of cases of child rights violations by building awareness in communities, and we work a lot with the children's institutions, schools, building awareness for children to even know what amounts an abuse. Okay. What happens if somebody sexually abuses you, attempts to abuse you? Where do you report? What are the available services at your disposal, and so on. So in the unlucky event that the abuse occurs, then we respond. And part of the response is now evacuating the children, for lack of a better word, and taking them to a safe space. Okay. Like we have children's villages across 5 counties in the country, where we are housing around 1,000 children who are very vulnerable. Some of them have lost parental care because of sexual abuse, others because of terminal illnesses in the family, and that's because of gross physical abuse. So that is one of our key response mechanisms.
Okay.
And then we also don't do this alone, because the government has done a lot in terms of rolling out a very vibrant policy and legislative framework to protect children. We have the Children's Act, we have the Sexual Offences Act, so the laws are there. Okay. But there's a major gap in terms of implementation of the legal provisions.
And where does that fall?
I think it falls across the board.
Across the board,
yes,
in the government?
Yes.
Okay.
We have law enforcement officers, of course, the police, the village elders, the chiefs. But we say in SOS that child protection is everybody's business.
Okay.
And so that's why we also train parents on child protection and communities on child protection, so that all communities in our dream across Kenya should have very vibrant child protection mechanisms. Okay. So that if Ken, you see your neighbor, or you suspect that in your neighborhood there could be cases of child abuse, you don't wait. You actually have a responsibility to report or take action.
Okay.
Yes.
I have the responsibility, but that no longer happens. The child is no longer belongs to a community. The child belongs to the parents, and yes, parents will be very reluctant, you know, to hear a third party engage in their business. You know.
Yes, it's unfortunate because, of course, over the years we've lost a lot of our traditional kinship ties, which were very strong. When I was growing up, I think if I went wrong, if I committed an offense as a child, any neighbor or relative would spank me, yes. But nowadays, I think we've really individualized things. We have a lot of gated communities. We want to protect our children from anything, and we don't want to know what is happening beyond our gates. So I think the advocacy campaigns that organizations like ours do are meant to open up the gates through information, and that's why Total News, I think they use digital platforms, so we can still break the barriers, the physical barriers.
Because I'm really interested to know exactly what, Jennifer, your organization does.
For us, we bring children's voices to the front.
Yes. You said you amplify them.
We amplify children's voices.
But apart from that, before you get the voice to amplify it, where do you get that voice?
We go to the field.
You go to the field.
Right now, I think later this week you will run something that we have done. We've gone to about 8 counties, getting voices of children in humanitarian settings, telling us what does it really mean to be a child in humanitarian setting. One that broke my heart is from Turkana. This boy came and told us about when you asked him, you know, when you go, what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, Gaidi, you know, and you're like, what? The Gaidi. Like you want
Did the child understand?
Yes. So we asked twice, do you want Gaidi? And so, what do you mean? Gaidi. Ulo anabebaga gun, nataka kwenda kuwa Gaidi. Ati kwa nini? Si tu kuua tu watu. So when we start talking to him, it's because he experienced violence when he was growing up. You know, he experienced people being fought because it's Turkana, West Pokot, that side. He saw people.
So violence has become fashionable. It's normal.
Yes,
to them.
And for him, he thought being violent and you have more power. Anyway, that violent person killed my parents when I was looking at him, you know. He killed my sisters and brothers, so he's more powerful than anybody. Everybody was calling him sir. So we talked to him and said, okay, I don't think, so he said, you know, Gaidi inaminisha utaua marafiki zako. So we contextualized it and he said, so for example, he stays in the streets in Turkana. Said, so naona marafiki zako unataka mtu aue. Akasema no, hapana, sisi nataka watu waue. Sasa hivyo ndo magaidi wanafanyaga. So the following day we went back and we asked him, so to say, okay, go think about overnight and tell us what you want to be tomorrow. So we went back and he asked, what do you want to be? He said, KDF. Can you see the difference? So the difference is not that far. So we want to bring voices of those children. We have children, like just here in Kijiji, a girl told us that since the fire in Kijiji, she has never slept. You know, so for us, we go to the field and bring those voices of children. We have a platform where children write their own stories, they do their own stories. So that's our work, just going and bringing their voices. Our platforms, like we have a news item, a news that is run by children. So for us, it's just bringing children voices into this whole conversation, not only here, just holding politicians accountable, holding the media accountable, holding policy makers accountable as children.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Compassion International, you sound like you come at the tail end, right?
Yeah. Basically, I think we do almost everything, but Compassion, the core strategy for Compassion is child protection. So in child protection, you're actually starting from the unborn child. How best can we protect that particular child through child survival programs? We also have programs that are targeting education, so making sure that children go to school. So we go to the very, very local areas where most organizations are not there. So we want to bring these children to be able to connect to schools, be able to reach some kind of life skills education. So we do also a component of life skills education. We also support major medicals, children who have had problems. They are actually in crisis. They are not able to access help within their community. So we identify that needy child and we bring them back to where they can be able to access health and support within their communities or even outside their communities. So basically, even as she has said, we are talking about how can we bring the voice of this child. The child who's in the village in Mararal, or the child who's in Hola, the child who's in West Pokot who has never been heard. We want to bring that voice, let the child be known, ensure that the child is known, loved and protected. So that's basically the component of child protection, ensuring that also we do actually a major component of prevention, where we train the child, we also train the caregiver or the parent. We also go to the level of engaging different stakeholders who can come in and be able to support this particular child or the communities around the child. Then in terms of response, I think my colleague from SOS has just mentioned a little bit. We do active response in emergency situations. When a child has been abused or a child is in disaster, for example, we had an initiative in Solai where children actually went through a dam that broke, and in such situation we find that it's easy for the child to be exploited because everyone is running for help. So we bring these children to centers, which are mostly churches, because churches are locally based, and we try to make sure that the child receives all the basic needs that are required in emergency situations, such as food, healthcare, and even personal items. Then after that, we are able to now strengthen that intervention by sustainable means, like building shelters for these children and making sure that they can go to school or connect them to homes and as residential places where they can stay if they are completely disconnected from their families.
Okay. Yeah. What you three have managed to tell me looks very practical and looks at very ideal kind of response to any situation. A child is in distress, there's a crisis that needs your response, and you respond to it. However, let me now take you back and tell me if there's a blueprint for the same, so that this is how we are going to act if this happens. And I'll begin with Pascal again. Yes.
I think across the sector we have standard operating procedures for cases of sexual abuse, for cases of physical violence, and anybody in the business will tell you that in case a child is sexually violated, and in this case it's a defilement because it's a child below the age of 18, within 72 hours they're supposed to have seen a doctor for the relevant medical specimen to be taken, and evidence. There are also standard procedures for evidence preservation. So in this case, if the defilement is fresh, for lack of a better word, then the evidence has to be preserved not in a paper bag, but maybe in a newspaper, so that the evidence is not denatured.
Okay.
And of course, the procedures also provide for reporting to the relevant government authorities, that is the police. They're also trained on the filling of the relevant documents.
But at what point do you train them in filling of relevant documents?
I think it's a process.
Because you have to wait for it to happen to know what to fill, right?
Yes, and in the prevention programs that we have, for instance, in SOS Kenya, we work with teachers, we work with the health personnel, we work with caregivers of the same children. We work with the community-based organizations to ensure at least there are key people within communities that we work in that are trained in child protection and that are very much aware of these standard operating procedures. And they also work in very close collaboration with the relevant government departments. The children's officers across the country, the police department have also been trained on child protection. So, and in some areas like in Makueni, where this case has happened, they actually have a very good gender recovery center at the county headquarters in Wate. And there you'll find NGOs, government departments establishing a very vibrant referral system. So if a case is reported, every agency knows what their role is.
Okay.
But
still that, Pascal, sounds to me tail end. Yes. That still sounds tail end. It doesn't sound as preventive.
I think in terms of prevention, we have to build a lot of awareness, like we said.
But is it happening?
It is happening.
It is happening.
It's only that it's not happening at the rate or volume that we would wish for it.
Or probably it's only happening where these cases are prone to happen, right? Or it's not general.
It's not very general.
Yes.
Because we are also guided by programs. But I know, like the government has established area advisory councils for children across all counties. But we also have resource constraints, coordination constraints. So you find that in the areas or institutions where this is happening, it's areas where maybe an NGO is present or the government has dedicated more resources. So of course there are challenges.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Jennifer, it's bad enough to know that this has happened. But again, it's worse if we can't help the children right from the beginning. But still, on the same question I asked Pascal, at what point do you think you're able to bring it to the people such that we don't wait for it to happen? The parents, the communities, everyone is aware, or we have to wait for it to happen?
So in terms of crisis, it's really difficult to predict a crisis. You know, it's quite challenging to say a crisis is going to happen tomorrow unless and that's why, like, for example, one of the ways that you can be able to prevent is to have like monitoring systems in case we have then something like a drought. We can be able to predict drought is going to happen in this particular time. So communities in this area have been told, please be prepared. Or flooding, when this flooding is going to happen. But things like fire, sometimes it's really hard to say there's going to be fire in Kibera tomorrow, so everybody need to move. So in cases like that, it's very difficult. But I know, like most of the humanitarian organizations, they have a blueprint. There's something called Child Protection in Emergencies system that is in place, and it kicks in as soon as an emergency happens.
Okay.
You know, and it has several levels. Like, for example, the best interest of the child has to be paramount. So one of the things that they do is to evaluate what rights of children are going to be violated at this point, and determining the best use of what is the best course that is in the best interest of the child. You know, and they look at alleviating pain in the most possible way, you know, ensuring that these children do not go through pain, you know. And that's why we see, like, whenever there's a crisis, there's a camp that has been set up somewhere, and in those camps there's always a section for children, so that those children can be able to get support. That's mental health and psychosocial support, just so that they can be able to build themselves up. And they do no harm. You know, what services are there that can ensure that this child does not go into more harm, did not get re-traumatized, because crisis is very traumatizing. Any form of crisis. Those of us who, during earlier this year when Dusit was bombed, we had the blast from far away. But nowadays, whenever you hear, can you imagine what happened to the children in the next school? Okay.
Or in that neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
Yes.
So what happened to those children? So then keep them from harm as much as possible, alleviate any form of things that can be able to. So that's a whole blueprint that is available, and it's available online. You can Google child protection in emergencies.
You get it.
And you can get it. Yes.
Okay, and it's practiced across the board, regardless of what you do.
Yes.
I'd like to come to Brenda, but Pascal mentioned something when he spoke about prevention. Yeah. I heard about this story that I was just told by my colleague, a story that probably we ran here on NTV, about a child who was molested in a kesha. So, you know, typically the child goes home, the parent is not aware what we should do to preserve the evidence and all. So the parent washes the child, you know, cleans up the child and all. There's case number 2 or case number 3. I watched yesterday where they mentioned, you know, the mother helping the child. But on this case, when they took the child to the prevention officers, the officer told her, but you see, you've erased the evidence. So take the child back to the kesha, let her experience the same thing, and then bring the evidence so that we can nail this guy. For example, that's what Pascal was talking about. Yes.
So that's a very that's a very unfortunate case. And
although the mother refused,
yes,
I refused to. I'll not do it.
That's a very unfortunate case. And that's why one of the challenges of child protection system in this country is because we don't have regulation of people who work with children. So we don't have, like that lady, the one who said go and get raped again. And I don't think this, I think from what I heard, after that I followed up and was told she's not even in the system as a volunteer children officer. She was fired a while back. But because in that community we don't have other people to take up that role, she's respected, she's a go-to person. So it becomes because we don't have one, the child protection system in this country is way under-resourced. Like, for example, the ratio between a child protection worker to children is 1 to 30,000.
1 to 30,000.
Yes, 1 to 30,000. That can give you a picture of the amount of workload. And this one person is doing, apart from the case management, like going to visit the children and counseling, they're also doing the bursary things. You see the bursary work that they go around. They're supposed to enter some data. This is one person, and they're supposed to do all this work. So they're so much of a burden, and they're not even paid so well. So, and then that limits to find these other people who are passionate. I call them the passionate. Their only qualification is passionate about children. So they have not been trained on child protection, you know. And they come, they say they sleep at night and feel, oh, I felt being led to work with children, so I'm going to work with children. And nobody has done a background check on them to find out if they have some form of they're predators or they can violate children. So they don't have training. They have not done any background check, and then you are giving them to work with children. So that's a huge gap on child protection system in this country.
I agree with you. We did a story just the other day of a clergy that had established also children's home. But even from where they came from, they had pending cases of child molestation and all.
So that's a huge gap, and something like, and that's why we are pushing for the children's bill. So we have a children's bill.
I'll talk about that legal framework for the protection, but let me hear about the framework from Brenda.
As everyone has said, actually we have to operate within the national framework, and there are certain procedures that need to be followed. And one of the gaps that, as I started earlier, that we have is we have a gap in terms of systems. And in child protection, just like any mechanical system, it's actually a mechanical system. So it means that we have to address issues from a multi-agency approach, where we know that certain agencies have a certain strength to be able to address an issue. For example, I do not expect probably someone from the National Police to provide counseling, because counseling is therapeutic and there's someone who's a profession in that. And so you asked a question about how do we address especially prevention. Prevention does not happen in emergency. Prevention actually happens years before. Yes. So when a child is abused, it means that that child should be prepared enough to be able to address that particular issue. And most of the time, it doesn't happen. And I have seen that I've handled more than 347 cases. And the child who's prepared is able to handle that case well. And they're able to preserve evidence. They don't need to go back and be abused so that they can be able to address the issue. So for me, I would talk about basically how do we preserve evidence. And that's important for any person, and even a child who's been abused. The first thing is, can I report that particular case? There are agencies where which are available to be able for a child to be able to report a particular case. For example, Childline is there. We also have the National Police, and that's usually the first place where a person can go to be able to get help. And if I go to the police or I go to the children's office or even to Childline by phone, I just say, okay, I've been abused, they should be able to actually go to that child and get the child to the right help. And that's the first approach in an emergency. But training has to happen early on, in advance. The child needs to know when I'm abused, what kind of abuse have I gone through? Which evidence am I, or what evidence am I preserving? Yeah, is it my clothes? Is it the scar? Is it maybe the people around me? Because also evidence is strengthened by the witnesses. I could have lost probably someone watched me because they were trying to hide the evidence. But if I have 3 or 4 people around me who witnessed the same abuse, then my case is stronger than the person who doesn't have that. And for me, the biggest pain that I see with children is the lack of awareness and training, which leads to a loss of a case. Now, losing a case is a loss of justice. And loss of justice means more children are going to be abused. Because I've seen where in a situation where you have one person who has actually been taken to court and they are in prison because of abusing a child, that community is rescued because everyone fears. They say, oh, don't abuse that child. That child comes from that particular child. So in a multi-agency approach, you are thinking, who is best placed to handle a specific issue? Where does the system start? There's a starter. The starter would be starting from the reporting level. Yeah, there's a person who's supposed to handle the legal documentation. I'm not expecting the child to do their own legal documentation. Someone should be able to do that, and that should happen either at the children's office or even at the justice system, probably in court. Someone should be able to record these are the things that happened to this particular child, and this is how the case will progress. So if we apply the multi-agency approach, then we're able to deal with it. But where we have quackers and people who are not trained, then we suffer from a system malfunction.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, stay with me. We're coming back. We have to take a short break. When we come back, I'd like to talk about the legal framework. I also realized from reading a lot of material on your work, I realized that there's the role the children also need to play in humanitarian situation, and I'd also like to talk about your challenges as the agency when we come back. And of course, Kevin Mutai is on standby in Mombasa. We'd also like to speak to him at the top of the hour. Stay with us because this morning we're discussing humanitarian action in Africa. This touches on children, and it's ahead of this year's Day of the African Child, which is coming in 5 days. All right, stay with us. We'll be back.
When you meet a Luo carrying his briefcase, don't ask him whether he's going to work. Those don't go to work. We attend to professional commitments.
Gangster main rule: avoid eye contact with your fans.
My name with me in studio is Brenda Etukai, Jennifer Kaberi and Pascal Masila. All of them work with children. We're coming back with our discussion ahead of the the Day of the African Child, which is themed as Humanitarian Action in Africa. We're discussing all that shortly, but first, let's cross over to Mombasa now, where Kevin Mutai is on standby. And Kevin, more than 9,000 secondary school principals across the country are gathered in Mombasa. They have a lot of things in their mind. Specifically, they have been speaking about lack of infrastructure to fund the 100% transition policy. And I am told, Kevin, that's not the only thing in their agenda. What else?
Well, of course, Ken, that is something that is of great importance to what the teachers, the school heads are here in Mombasa to discuss. And of course, among other issues ranging from, as you said, capitation, there's also the employment of teachers. There's also the issue of the competency-based curriculum. And the name is all those things will be able to feature in their discussions during the 5-day conference here in Mombasa. Remember yesterday, the Kesha chairman, that is in the Mulikahi, reiterated that they will be able to discuss all those issues and come up with proposals that they'll be able to pass on to the Ministry of Education. Remember, Professor Magoha, that is the Cabinet Secretary for Education, is expected here tomorrow to attend this particular function. We're also expecting officials from NAT and KUPPET and, of course, the Teacher Service Commission, who will be part and parcel of the ongoing talks here during the entire 5-day conference in Mombasa. But let me quickly engage the chairman of Kesha to quickly take us through what we are expecting to get from this particular conference. Thank you so much and welcome to NTV.
Thank you.
You talked about CBC.
Yes.
What are some of the issues that you'll be interrogating on this particular curriculum?
On the CBC, first we want to state very clearly as an association and as principals, we are supporting the new curriculum. The only thing we are now asking, we should now start looking at the curriculum-based education so that we look at the processes of ensuring that the curriculum designs are implemented well. And those are what we want to see. We want to look at a situation where we are able to know where are we anchoring junior secondary, senior secondary. And we can only make an informed decisions once we have the curriculum designs for those two levels. Secondly, we also want to look at the preparation, the in-servicing of the teachers early enough. We do not want to be found in the situation in which our counterparts have been complaining. We would like this. We have 3 years, and 3 years is enough for us to prepare well for the students entering into whatever junior secondary and the senior secondary.
Well, of course, some of the things that, of course, we're expecting to hear from the school heads is, of course, the consent to sex. That is a pertinent issue as school heads. What is your take on that?
Yeah, that is, I ask myself, are we becoming a morally sick society? Why should we really spend time discussing issues of sex? There are more important issues to discuss. As heads, we are saying the consent to sex should remain at the age of 18, when the Constitution now allows them to be adults. But if we had powers, we would have pushed that to 21. When they have finished education and maybe at the university, where they are able to make certain decisions on their own. At the age of 16, as is being put, these are very young children. They have informed too. You will lock up so many people.
And just lastly, quickly, this conference is based on transition to 100% transition, which is something that the government is really fronting. As school heads, what are your plans to ensure that this is succeeds?
Yeah, 100% transition definitely is on in our schools. What we are saying is we must ensure the infrastructure is in place. One, so that we are able to spread out our students. Instead of having 70, 80 students in a class, we get the minimum 48 students. It means, therefore, extra classrooms. And when you have extra classrooms to spread them out, you need enough teachers so that you are able to have more streams. The available teachers spread so thinly, effectiveness will go down. And that is what we are talking about. Yes.
Ken, thank you so much. And remember, I said this is a 5-day conference, and they'll be speaking about various issues. That was Kesha chairman, and he says that all those the conference will be able to make them, or rather allow them make informed decision before presenting their proposals to the ministry for further directions. Ken, I hand it over back to you. We'll be following on what will be happening here, and we'll be updating our viewers.
Thank you, Kevin Mutai, reporting from Mombasa. Thank you for your live reporting. Let's cross over to Muranga, where Martin Maura is also on standby. Martin, good morning. What do we have from Muranga?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, it's a good morning from County 021. As you can see behind me, I have a group of gentlemen and some ladies here. These are members of the Muranga Municipal Board that after the town was elevated to a municipal, this is the board that was formed. Now today they are inspecting the ongoing projects that I'm being told that they are being funded by the World Bank. This is after the county government got the total number of population, that is, it made the threshold to be a municipal. But without much ado, I just want to talk to the chairman to tell me maybe the kind of project they're inspecting and what they are doing today. Chairman, karibu na majina uniambie.
Good morning, my name is Architect Benson Kedenji Mwangi. I'm the chair of the Muranga Municipality Board. Just to confirmation that there's something said about the elevation to municipality. Muranga might not have met the threshold, but there were special seats where the seats of governments were elevated to be municipalities. That is how Muranga qualified. However, we're still pursuing elevation of Keno and Muranga because they must have met the threshold population by now. 2, this is a project under the Kenya Urban Support Program with the World Bank. Part of it is to decongest and upgrade the infrastructure of Muranga. This project was arrived at after consultation with the general public. You can see the area MCA is here. This road was impossible to access to the mortuary. It's the only mortuary in the county. So it became one of our priority projects. So today we are overseeing the level of completion of the project. And I'm glad to inform the general public that we're almost at 90% completion. So within the next few weeks, it should be able to be commissioned for use by the public. Yes.
Maybe another issue that my last question to is garbage collection menace here in the county. Maybe you can address about that.
Another to just confirm what you've said. Part of the Act, the Urban Areas and Cities Act, most of those duties have been delegated to boards. So we're working on a policy document so that we can streamline collection of garbage and disposal. However, I'd also want to appeal to the residents. Let's be responsible on how we dispose our garbage so that we can all take responsibility of what you're doing. Yeah, but that is work in progress. Yes.
Before devolution, this county used to be the cleanest and there was no hawking. But we're seeing food hawking all over and hawkers. Maybe what plans do you have for the county?
As you said again, you still want to encourage small traders to do, but you don't want to do it in an orderly manner. So as we work on the revised master plan of the municipality, we'll also try to decant them, but reasonably, humanly, and areas where they'll also be able to respect health standards, they'll be able to respect, not to expose themselves to any risks, but it's also complement the businessmen who also own the premises where they operate from. Okay. Yes.
Let me talk to the chairman. Here he is the person in charge of health. There are plans to come up with fruit trees along the streets of Muranga. Maybe what is your view? Kindly.
Yes. First of all, my name is Dr. Banat Muya, and yes, I'm the chairman of Public Health, Water and Sanitation. And the issue of beautification of Muranga municipality is, as chairman I just alluded, we are coming up with a strategic plan in 1 year, which will show us the road map of where we are going. Answering the question of planting or having fruits along the road, it is something which is under deliberations in the board. We are thinking about it. We also know the roads, we have emissions from the vehicles, we have carbon particles, we have sulfur and other elements which are emitted by vehicles. And research globally has shown that along the roads, even you can also actually see how how trees are darkened by carbon particles. So research has also done to the effect that all those plants along the roads, they have carbon particles and other emissions from the road. So for us to have fruits where the fruits to be eaten, or the beautification, that's what we are deliberating. And sooner than later we will make it, because the board is a corporate entity. And we will not make decisions which are not based on evidence. We want to have evidence-based decisions which will take this municipality to a city in the next 5 years. So we want this city, the Muranga, to be the smartest. Just let me add what Chairman has just said about solid waste. If only you peel your banana, and instead of throwing the banana to the street, put it somewhere, later you dispose it at designated areas, either in our home or the municipality has got designated areas where we can have those solid waste disposed. So if all of us will become responsible, the solid waste will be something of the first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me talk to a lady over here, just to represent the gender, gender equality. As the area MCA, maybe what plans do you have? You had the roads, some roads are impassable, and the issue of street lighting. Maybe what plans do you have?
Okay, my name is Jacinta Wangarenganga, and I'm the area representative of this ward. First and foremost, I would wish to take this opportunity to thank the management, the municipality board, and also for the elevation of the Muranga town to its municipality status. And as we are standing here, as you can see this road has never been done since time immemorial, and now we can see the fruits of the municipality board in conjunction with the county government. And also there are some areas which are also going to be done, and especially the roads which are impassable. We have some roads which are impassable, and I'm sure that the board is going to visit those areas and maybe give them priorities. Yeah.
Maybe issues to do with security and street lighting.
Okay, the issue of the street lighting is also part of the municipality board and also the county government. We are also doing something about the security, because we can see as the way they were done, some of them were not done in the right way, and we are going to remove them and place them once again. Okay. Yeah. Thank
you so much for your time. Okay. Ken, as you have just heard, I was just talking to the members of the municipal board who are giving out the work plan that they have and the plans they have for this county as they gear toward making it a city in the next few years. Back to you, Ken.
Right. Thanks, Martin Mwaura, with that live report from Muranga. And back to studio, obviously we'll do a situation check also around the county of Nairobi, that's 047, to find out what's happening. I see Doreen is ready. We'll try and get her to speak to what's happening on the streets, because yesterday they launched a new USSD number to enable you pay for your rates and bills. We'll try and go to her as soon as we get her on here. But let's bring back the discussion to Brenda, Jennifer, and Pascal. And let's try and find out the legal framework for doing what you do. Let me begin with Pascal once more. Is there a legal framework? Is it adequate? Because this also reminds me of an incident that happened a couple of years ago. A child, a minor, an underage who was molested, got judgment against her because in the opinion of the judge, the child somehow consented or knew what she was doing, something, but still it was a minor. Yeah. So legal framework, are you satisfied with it?
Thank you so much, Ken. Maybe I'll talk broadly about the legal framework that guides child protection and child rights in Kenya. And it is largely drawn from international legal frameworks on children's rights. And I'll mention just two broadly. One, we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, yes, which was passed by the United Nations General Assembly in 1989. And then we have the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child that was passed by the OAU then, currently the AU, in 1990. And when you look at our domestic laws, we have the Children's Act of 2001, and we have several other acts. We have the Sexual Offences Act that focuses on sexual offences. We have, of course, the Refugee Act. We have the Prohibition of FGM Act. So I think we have a very comprehensive legal framework, but laws are made to be applied and tested. So currently, the Children's Act is under review.
Okay.
It was passed, that is almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah,
in
2001.
And when you look at the social, economic, and other dynamics that have emerged since then it calls for a major review to make sure that it is updated in terms of being more responsive to the modern trends in terms of child abuse and neglect. And so in terms of effectiveness, I would say that we still have gaps in the legal framework, and it is our responsibility to make sure that as stakeholders, we identify the gaps in terms of the application of the provisions of the law and work with the government and the judiciary to address the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Talk to us, Jennifer, about the framework.
So I will not repeat about the international and regional legal framework, that's the UNCRC and the African Charter,
Okay.
but I'll go into the Children's Act.
Okay.
So as it's outdated, like it's so outdated. It's one of the few laws, I think probably the only law that is not aligned to the Constitution 2010. So, and it has and the current legal framework does not protect issues like online child protection, issues like child trafficking, issues like missing children, and what you are talking about, emergencies, children emergency settings. It doesn't have that framework. But the current bill, the Children's Bill 2018, it's somewhere. It's a very comprehensive law that was developed by child participation, adult participation. I was in a team that went across the country collecting views of children on what needs to be in the law. But there has been a challenge in putting it to Parliament, and that we are hoping this discussion is going to make somewhere to push it to Parliament, because it's putting children in danger. Like the story that was just aired yesterday on NTV. If that law has a very comprehensive statement on how case management of a case like that, what should happen to past people who do that. So, but the current law is not that comprehensive. And then we have the National Plan of Action. So the National Plan of Action is supposed to be the action of to apply or to implement the Children's Act. Okay. But it's supposed to go under review, the midterm review, this year at some point. So that one it's like an action plan or a work plan of every person working with children in Kenya is supposed to follow. So it is along the 4 pillars of the children's rights. That's the pillar on child protection, the pillar on child survival and development, the pillar on child participation. So it is very comprehensive, but the only challenge that it's not costed. And when it comes to humanitarian settings, I think there's a policy on disaster management. I don't think it has been operationalized yet. Okay. So there's a whole policy that in case of an emergency as a country, what we are supposed to do. But I don't think it has been operationalized yet.
All right.
Yes.
Brenda, stand by. I'm coming back to you to answer the same question. But first, let's do a situation check around the county of Nairobi, County 047. Doreen, good morning. Good to see you on the street. What have you seen? Are Nairobians having difficulty in paying for their parking and such, like now that the Jumbo Pay one was suspended and they have a new USSD out? Do they have problems? Have you spoken to them?
Thank you, Ken, from studio. Well, so far so good. The parking lots are full. Systems seems to be running normal. The city is busy as well. But then the issue here is, have Kenyans started paying for the parking? Precisely the Nairobi residents, motorists to be specific. I've just talked to some of them, expressing some issues here and there. Well, maybe I would like them to, talk about their issues face to face on the camera, to just tell us whether they've paid for the new parking system using the *325# instead of the other one. So, good morning. What is your name, and tell us?
John Kimani Nganga. I'm a motorist in this city for quite a long time. And it's very unfortunate that we woke up today that you're saying that systems have changed from the old GGPay to the new system. And then the problem we are having, I don't think most motorists have paid for this, because there was no civic education on the part of the city council telling the motorists that they need to change. There was nothing, it was just abrupt. And we don't know which one to pay with. It's just telling us sorry. that the systems are not working.
So have you paid for the parking yourself?
Not paid personally. Even I don't know which number you go to dial first of all, because I don't know. There was no posters, there was no billboard, there was no civic education on the part of the city council telling us, come Monday, things will have changed. So I don't know what's going on actually. We are in the total confusion right now, but I think as it goes back, I don't know what to do. The city seems to be confused as its governor, who seems to be confused all along.
And do you think this new system of payments will work? Because now we are using *23#. I've used it myself.
Yes.
But the problem is they do not give the receipts.
I don't know what's
It
going to work.
just goes straight into M-Pesa,
Yes.
paid to the Nairobi City Council, National Bank.
Yes.
Have you tried the *23?
I have just had the statistic from you.
Okay.
But nowhere, nobody told me when I came to the city in the morning that I'm supposed to use *235#. Nobody told me, so I mean I'm a bit confused. Now I'll try to do that to see whether it's going to work. But unfortunately is that we have many things changed automatically. I can't get to this *235# and see whether it will work. But as it is now, I'm certain most people here, over 80% of the city council, motorists in this city, don't know whether they are. Let's try and see. I go back to the city and let's see what we're gonna do to get *23#. I don't know what's gonna happen because I'm certain that most people have the problem. *235#.
*235#. Okay.
And let's see what it goes. Safaricom. Sterling, yes. Yeah, welcome to every city. Yeah, E1 number 1 is parking. Yes. But how many people, like, you have educated me now, how many people in this city know?
All right, so we have a motorist there who is going to refill and see whether the system is going to work. Let's go to another Kenyan and tell us whether they have tried the new parking system payment or not. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Please tell me your name and then have you tried the new parking? Have you paid for parking today?
Yes, I did, but for me, mine is for 1 month. I pay seasonal. So, okay, I mean, for the new parking, I don't have an idea, and I don't know how actually it's working. So, as in, I'm actually hearing it from you for the first time. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, it seems that you use the monthly subscription, yeah? Has it sent you a text message saying that it's been dissolved or something?
Basically, no.
Okay.
I haven't received any message. There's no communication. So, and my car is here. This one.
That's your car?
Yes, that's my car.
Okay. All right, Ken, let's just get another motorist to just find out whether they have paid for parking today and whether the system is hectic as well. Good morning to you.
Yes.
I'm Doreen from NTV. So tell us, have you paid for parking today? Are you aware of the new parking payment system?
Tuko aware of the new parking system, lakini shida hiyo parking haileti receipt. Unalipa inasema umelipa kwa Nairobi City Council National Bank account, lakini sasa haileti receipt. Yeah.
Umelipa labda ukitumia code gani?
*235#. *235#.
*235#.
Yeah.
But it hasn't brought you a receipt?
No receipt.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, that's basically the views of a few Kenyans here and there. Others haven't paid for parking at all, so they're in fear on whether the city council is going to clamp their cars as usual. And others have used the system. Others say the problem is the city council portal does not send them a receipt to show whether they have paid for parking or not. But the M-Pesa messages are coming through that the parking has been paid. So basically that's it, Ken, from Kenyans out here.
All right, Doreen, just a supplementary question before I let you go. The other question that I had being asked, and perhaps you may tell us if it's been addressed, the fact that there are a lot of people who deposited their money in the e-wallets. What happens to that money? Has it been addressed at all?
So far, I have met one city council officer and they just told me they're junior, they cannot speak much about that. But then they say that they're having challenges here and there, they're trying to settle that. So far, I have used my e-wallet and it's not working. They just, the message comes back as the system does not work. Sorry, the system doesn't work. And that's when I decided to use the new code.
So did you have money inside your e-wallet?
So maybe when we speak to them during the day, I had no money in my e-wallet. I pay daily 200
Oh,
shillings.
daily, so you
day.
don't put money in your e-wallet. You're among the lucky ones, Doreen.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Doreen Majala, situation check. And if the county is watching, anyone from the county, perhaps they'd like to clarify exactly what do we do with the money that was in the e-wallet, because I'm sure I have about 900 shillings in the e-wallet. So does it just disappear? Will it be refunded via M-Pesa? Some of the pertinent questions. But let's come and answer those pertinent questions, but regarding the child welfare with the experts in children matters. I have Brenda, Jennifer, and Pascal still with me in studio. Sorry for that interruption. We had to talk to Nairobians also. Brenda, the same question that we were talking about, the legal framework. Do you have something to add, or we can move on to discuss something else regarding this?
Yeah, I can just talk briefly about some of the areas that we cover, especially in the framework on children and the Children's Act. So the issues that currently we are addressing are issues of alternative care. How do we actually provide alternative care for children who are not able to live with their families? We also have areas like custody and maintenance. There are many parents out there who don't know what to do when they're separated, who should stay with my child. And the Children's Office is able to provide support for them and be able to help them to actually describe or find ways of supporting their children or coming up with one caregiver for the child. And then we also have the Sexual Offences Act, which really helps us to charge and also provide evidence for any case that is involving sexual offences. The other area that I wanted to say is the issue of coordination. How do we coordinate children services? And the DCS and the National Council for Children's Services and Child Welfare have been able to provide a good environment to coordinate various stakeholders that are working within the same agencies or within the same environment. And also we have institutions that are working to support children, and they have also been able to bring up some kind of clarity on how do we work as a charitable institution, as an INGO, how do I work to support children. So basically that's the general children framework. The issue that is pertinent right now is the issue of consent, and probably I can just mention, you talked about it, and consent, even from the international law, any person that is below the age of 18 cannot consent, and that has remained as a stand. So we are actually not able to even change the law to suit a different context, because we are obliged to the international law. A child cannot consent to any sexual encounter. So if any person out there wants to abuse that particular child or use that child for any form of exploitation, they don't have any leeway in the law. So the child will still remain a child, and the best interest of the child shall be upheld at all times.
Now that you mentioned that, there was a debate a few weeks or months ago about reducing the consent age to 16. Mm-hmm. Where was your stand?
We can't reduce the consent age because we are obliged to the international laws, the UN Convention and the African Charter. So as much as the discussion and people want to find ways of exploiting children, we have no leeway to actually go to that direction.
What is the consent age in the US?
In the US, I think it's around 14, 16, because they have not, the US is the only country which has not signed the International Convention on the Rights of the Child. So they are not obliged to that convention. Okay. But for Kenya and all the rest of the countries in the world, they have signed the UNCRC, and so we are actually obliged to it. So I am not seeing a situation where we are going to change the age of consent very soon.
It's not possible so long as we subscribe to the international one. You know, now that you mentioned that, I'm just wondering, the US never subscribes on anything, even the ICC.
Yes.
All right, let's bring the discussion to children. And before I talk about the challenges, I'd like to talk about the role of the children, the role they play in any humanitarian crisis. What is the role? Because naturally you'd assume these are people to be protected, but now you're saying, hey, young man, you have obligations, so young girl, you have obligations too. Jennifer?
So one is to speak out.
Okay.
You know, you cannot be helped if you're not able to speak out. But as a child, if you're going through a crisis, you have to be able to say, I am going through this. For example, it's a trauma, you have to be able to say, I'm going through this trauma, I need help.
Okay.
And also to be able to get involved in programming. You know, in an event of crisis, people push children away. They don't want to hear their voices and what they can be able to contribute in improving the situation. So, but research has shown, like for example, I think it's in Mali, children are consulted in case of, like, you know, it's very volatile, like in issues like it's called a conflict, you know.
Since 2012, the political crisis.
Yeah, the political crisis there. So I've said the children have been consulting the children, what do you think can be done to stop this crisis? And they have brilliant ideas on how to end. Like, for example, start with us educators, you know, give us education, you know. They have a role on speaking out, you know, speaking out against violations, and children are the best voice, you know. Children have the most innocent because they are very objective, because they are not from either side of the conflict, because they have a very objective view of the issue. So speaking out, protecting others. If they are older ones, they have a role of protecting others from the crisis. You know, as a child, you can be able to protect your younger ones, and also helping out in, for example, in feeding some of children. You know, and being able part of the response mechanism. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's quite some role. Yes, Pascal.
Yes, and just to add, even from the legal perspective, all the international and local frameworks that you're talking about provide for child participation as a right. So children have to be on the table when it comes to prevention, response, and other programs across the board. So, for instance, in terms of the climate change phenomena that we are witnessing, the recurrent droughts and everything, I think we've seen quite a few agencies engaging children in reforestation, tree planting, and other activities that aim at reducing soil erosion. So I just wanted to emphasize on the right of children to participate in all activities that affect their lives. And we have national guidelines on child participation. So children are not there to be seen, and they are not supposed to be recipients of rights. They're actually active participants in claiming those rights.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Unless you have something to add, a question just popped in my mind again. There was a time that there was clamor for the introduction of sexual education in schools. Did it happen? It didn't happen. But do you think as stakeholders this could have helped? And to what extent?
Maybe from a child perspective, there are a few challenges that has to be resolved before that curriculum is put in place. One is, at what age are we training the children, and what is the content of the material? Because what we've seen is that where the comprehensive sexual education was actually implemented, we are seeing more children becoming pregnant for the girls, and also becoming sexually active. So I see
as a result of
the training, because the training is not regulated. Because if you teach me, and I'm 9 years old, and you teach me about sexual education, I have to get it in an appropriate way, in a manner that is like packaged for my age and also for my own understanding, so that I can use it positively. So I think that's a challenge that we still have to grapple with, and maybe it needs to be regulated also.
It needs to be regulated.
Yeah. For me, I would say age-appropriate, comprehensive sexual education. Because I've interacted with children, and most of them are abused because they do not know they're being abused. I'll give an example of a story I came across in, is it Kwale? I think it was Kwale. About this girl, she just started her menses. Nobody had spoken to her about menses. She didn't know what they are. So, you know, she was in shock, and she thought maybe she thought she was sick. So she goes to a Boda guy and said, hey, this is happening. Blood is coming from this side. Can you help me? So the guy, of course, the Boda guy knew what is that. And then he took her to his, said, I know how to stop it. He took her to his house and molested her. And then, so for some reason, it stopped. So the girl said, hallelujah. So this is the
probably she got pregnant.
This is the medicine to my stopping of this. And then it continued until she got pregnant. No, for 9 months she was not pregnant. By the time people were realizing what was happening, she had been defiled several times. It's not, for me, it's age-appropriate comprehensive sexual education. For example, my 7-year-old, I'm telling her, do not let someone touch you here and there, because that's age-appropriate. But as you grow, the child grows old, make it more a bit complex. So at 13-year-old, they don't get into a place where they are being molested and they do not know what is going on. So for me, it is more like that. And then I also want to add, like, on issues of the children's bill, you know, some of these things of sexual molestation and stuff like that, if you can be able to have, like, the current bill, the bill that is somewhere, needs to have, it has a very comprehensive justice system that is able to, that comes from the community level, to be able, the age of consent manenos was because people are saying that there are more boys being locked than the girls and stuff. But it starts from the community level and starting to deal some of those issues from the community level. So are we able to deal with like sexual issues from the community level, and to be able as a community, how we to deal with sexual issues from the community level? And then when a child is defiled or they have a relationship, quote unquote, what can be done? Do they have to go to jail or they don't have to go to jail? Yeah.
Okay. Pascal, some question.
Yes, I think I'll just sum it up from what my colleagues have said, because when you look at the legal frameworks, again, they talk about provision of information and opportunities for decision making, depending on the child's evolving capacities. And that resonates with what my colleague is saying with regard to age appropriateness. So it will be a major risk to expose very young children to a lot of too much information that they might end up using negatively. But a lot of education is happening beyond the curriculum.
Okay.
Like what my colleague is saying, there's a lot of education for children, for caregivers, for the public. And like for very young children, there's you just train them on the good touch, the bad touch, so that even if it's your father or your uncle, if they touch you, maybe on your private past, at least a child will be able to say, Daddy alinishika mahali pabaya.
Okay.
And that in itself will actually raise an alarm.
Okay.
So I think such efforts still need to be sustained, regardless of the curriculum.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think the idea is, even as we talk about the theme of the Day of the African Child, thinking about children's rights first. Every child needs to understand their rights. And when I understand my rights as a child, if I think of that as a person, then I'm able to actually overcome some of these challenges. I'm able to understand, am I in the right age to be able to be maybe sexually active? Am I of the right age to be in social media or being trafficked? Being trafficked can also be a choice for an adult, but for a child, that's not a choice. So just understanding my rights and knowing that these are the things that I can do as a child and these are the things I cannot do. The other thing is also, how can we connect the children to also help? How can I be able to assist this particular child to be able to understand and be able to know how do I access this help? Yeah? The processes which we talked about earlier. So that is still part of understanding their rights. And the thing that really works it out very well is education, because when a child is in school, then they are not being abused, because most of the time you find children who are out of school or children who are on the streets are the ones who face higher, more vulnerable. Yeah.
Okay.
So when a child is in school, then they're actually fulfilling almost 70% of the rights. Yeah? So then we are thinking about children's rights first, humanitarian action for children. So how can we also as a society be able to promote education for children?
All right. Now that we're talking about education, I'd like to get you off a little bit to speak to someone about education. But when we come back, because we have a few minutes on the clock, I'd like to speak about your challenges as stakeholders and agencies. And lastly, I'd like to know what to expect from the Day of the African Child, right? But first, let's cross over to Bernard. Bernard Ojwang is in the county of Migori, if I'm not wrong. Bernard, good morning. We are talking about education here, but you are talking about education with a new twist, and this is based on competency-based curriculum. These students are doing what they love and what they can do. They have been in school, and now they're venturing into agriculture. Tell us more.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Just as you have said that we are here in Awendo, Rongo, the boundary between Rongo and Awendo, and exactly we are in Rongo constituency. What's happening here, these are students, graduates, creative arts graduates, and also education graduates. They are here. They have said that they have tarmacked enough, and they have also spent a lot of money bribing their way to get white-collar jobs. But of course, their efforts have borne no fruits. And currently, what this is from the other side to the other side. It is 3 acres that they are currently doing pumpkin farming, and of course, they are saying that since.
Right, apology for Bernard. Very interesting discussion there with Bernard. Let's see if we can get him back at the top of the hour, but let's conclude our discussion before we can get to him. Your challenges, do you have challenges? I know financing is a big thing because you'd like to be present everywhere, right? You'd like to do much, much more. You'd like to bring people, more children into your facilities, and so you like to get more voices communicate, right? And at Compassion too. But what are the challenges? Because someone would sit and say, most of these NGOs, you know, they're money making. They have a lot of money, right? Let me begin with Brenda. Challenges for these
I
agencies.
think the biggest challenge is how can we put the resources to the right intervention for children. And we've talked about the specific interventions that we can be able to support children. For example, legal. Legal is very costly in Kenya. Yeah? When you talk about medical intervention, some of the children go through so much trauma, they need a lot of medical support other than the immediate response. We also, I think of psychosocial. We still have to pay for counseling for children. So resources is very paramount when you think about best ways of supporting the child. And that has been a major challenge for many organizations. So we are not able to really meet the needs of the children completely. The other one is resources in terms of human capacity. Do we have enough staff to be able to support the children? The Children's Services currently, or the Director of Children's Services, are the main agencies that are supposed to actually address issues that are involving children. And we have one staff to around 30,000 children. That means that...
Which is quite, you know,
yes.
I just understood the other day, for policemen, it's about 1 for every 400.
Yes.
Now you're having 1 for 30,000.
Yes,
What?
and that's a very big gap because we have staff who have burnout. They are tired of talking about orphans, tired of talking about abuse, tired of talking about this, and they need a break. And probably we need to allocate more resources to that so that we can be able to support. Again, I think the other thing is to how best can we be able to streamline the services so that even as we stretch further and crime becomes more complicated and complex, especially the predators, how can we be able to address some of these issues? Currently, the biggest challenge is online child protection, and most of it has to do with self-initiated. Children go online and they want also to participate in what is happening. So we need resources to be able to deal with some of these challenges and creative ways also to address. So those are the current ongoing challenges that we have.
That you
and
face.
yeah,
Okay.
and we have to find ways.
Jennifer, do you share the same?
Yes, but I have two major ones, which
Okay.
I think if they're solved, will solve a lot of issues in this country. One is coordination.
Okay.
Coordination in two levels, coordination at government level and coordination among children's service sector actors. In terms of, we lack coordination at the national, at the government level. This is how county government and the national government work. You know, you go to counties, they say, "Ai, maneno toto, sio sisi ni watu wa national government." You understand? You start
go to the
thinking,
national government,
you go to
they tell
national,
you?
hatuna pesa, ni watu wa NCCS, apana, it's Department of Children's Service, apana, it's Street Family Fund, no, actually Child Welfare Society. So you find, this child has been ping-ponged literally among different, you go judiciary, we don't have facilities to take care of children. Police, children cannot stay in a, you know, so you find a child is being ping-ponged because there's not that coordination, you know, and that's a huge challenge when it comes to when you're looking at children's sector. And even us, like if you want to get children voices, you have to go to different sector, and they all tell you, that's not our role, that's not our role, that's not our role. So that's, and you find it brings big, it's not even cracks, I think it's a whole huge hole in a wall of child protection system.
So there's no coordination.
There's no
coordination.
There's like the coordination is it's if it is there, it's on like a string. You know, it's very small. And then among children, child protection or children's sector workers, that's the same thing. And NGOs, I'm beating ourselves. You know, we do not work like you know, as a unit to be able to protect these children. And that's because we don't have someone telling us, you know, like if you want to koroga tea, you have to have someone stirring it, you know, and that should be the government. So the government is not playing that role of saying, you guys, this is the system you're supposed to, okay, so all guys are supposed to move this side. So you find everybody is there doing their own thing, you know. This child has 5 bursaries, while this other child doesn't have even 1 bursary, and they have the same challenge. So that's a huge problem. The other challenge is data. So right now, the data that we are depending on is the 2009
Census.
census,
Yes.
which says it's 54% of children, of the population is children. But from there, we don't have like the exact data or number of children who have been abused, the number of children who are on the streets. We don't have the number of children who are orphans or children who have been affected maybe by the different humanitarian crises. So when you're going to respond, it becomes a challenge, and people start accusing us as NGOs. You guys go to the same places, and they are supposed to, because that's the only place when
that is available.
That's the only
Okay.
data that is available.
Okay.
And because of value for money, you are forced to go there. You can't go to a place where there's no data at all.
You're going to start from
from zero.
Zero, yes.
So and that's a huge challenge. So if you can be able to sort out the issue of data and coordination, the children's sector is going to work.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll take it from where she left, because the coordination has a very negative impact on the work that you do, because it ends up making us duplicate resources, waste resources, when we are still talking about a lot of scarcity of resources. And so I think I just wanted to reiterate what Jennifer has said. But being an African, and we are talking about African children, and we draw so much from our African culture, even regardless of the international and domestic legal frameworks. I think cultural practices, beliefs are also a cross-cutting challenge in this work, because the laws are comprehensive, but sometimes their application is very difficult in some communities. For instance, the way we will deal with a case of child sexual abuse in Makueni is different from the way we will deal with it in a place like Busia or Nyakach, because there they have traditional solutions that evade the legal frameworks. So if any child has been sexually abused, wazés come and sit together, they silence the child, they silence the mother, they actually punish the child, because probably a goat is slaughtered, some medicine called manyasi is administered, and the child is actually isolated from the mother, who is supposed to be the primary caregiver. So I think we can talk the whole day about FGM, about early marriages, about all these other things. But for as long as we do not also address some of the underlying causes like cultural practices, beliefs, and so on and so forth, we won't get there. Okay. Because I can tell you for sure that there are so many cases that go unreported because they are sorted out at that
family level, community level. Yes, you'll shame our family. You'll bring disrepute and shame to this family if you go ahead.
Yes. So I think that is a major challenge. And then the last one, because you're talking about children, is child participation.
Oh, child participation.
Yes. I think a lot of programs, government programs, NGO programs, do not engage children meaningfully. Even when you're talking about programming for them, we are talking about the Day of the African Child. But some of the promising things that are happening across the country right now, I understand there are quite a lot of forums for children. So children are actually discussing the humanitarian crisis
themselves
across Kenya,
within their groups.
as we are talking.
Okay.
Across all the counties, and eventually they'll assemble in different days. Not all of them will assemble maybe on the 16th. Okay. But it's very interesting that at least, and it's very encouraging that we are giving them voices, so that we don't sit here like experts and talk about their issues without listening to them and hearing from them.
Traditionally, children are supposed to be seen, not to be heard.
I like your usage of traditionally.
That is changing. That is changing. All right. We have a few minutes on the clock, ladies and gentlemen. We have a few minutes. So I'll give you an opportunity to tell me what to look forward to on the 16th, and then all of
Yes. I'll just give you a preamble of the Day of the African Child.
Yes.
And to the viewers who don't know what the day means and where it came from, in 1976, in Soweto, South Africa, the African children rose up, and they protested against the low quality of education that they were receiving, and they also protested the introduction of Afrikaans, which was the colonialists' language. It had been introduced as a language of instruction in schools. So they actually rose up and they defended their rights. And quite a few hundreds of them were killed, shot down by police. I think it was a very nasty thing to watch. And as a commemoration, the African Union set aside the 16th of June to celebrate and commemorate the African child. And so this day is broadly supposed to make us sit down and reflect from the situation of the African child, straight from our families to our communities to nationally. So on June the 16th, we anticipate a national celebration in West Pokot, again, in Tana River. Thank you. In line with the theme, humanitarian crisis. And so I think we'll see government officers, we'll see NGO actors, we'll see children sit down and participate and commemorate the Day of the African Child and celebrate children's rights broadly. Maybe
Okay, Jennifer.
So this year we are very intentional in ensuring that there are children voices. We are trying to change that myth that children are there to be seen, not to be heard. So this year we are hoping at different forums on the 47 counties, they're going to develop position papers, and those position papers are going to be presented to the CS Okuru Atani on issues that affect children in humanitarian settings and what the children believe should be done by government to ensure that their rights are being protected. So the other thing that we are hoping that during the 16th of June, the CS and hopefully the President is going to tell us the status of the Children's Bill, because it's been undermaking for the last since 2005. It has been reviewed up to today. That's like almost 14 years. So we are hoping that during this year, the government is going to come and say the President committed in Vancouver ending female genital mutilation, and one of the steps we believe is by passing the Children's Bill. So we are hoping this year he's going actually to say it should be in Parliament next week. Okay. So that's one of the things that we are hoping to see.
Okay,
thank you.
If only children will be in Parliament, believe me, that would be low by now.
Yeah.
That would be low. 16 years back, it would have been low.
Yeah.
Right, and finally, Brenda.
Yeah, so as I've said, we are celebrating the child, and I think for me the most important thing is for us to remember that childhood is very important, and all of us enjoyed our childhood. We all had fun. We went to school, and it was exciting for those who are in some of those years just to connect to different people from exposed to different communities, yeah. And I think that's the thing that we need to think about. How can we celebrate the children that are within us? At an age where there's increasing perpetrators, for me, I just want to say it's not cool to abuse a child, yeah. For the young people, it's not cool, yeah. Think about something else other than how can you abuse a child. So let's come together and celebrate the children. And this day is a day that is celebrated in all the counties. So if you don't plug into the national one at Hola, there's something that is happening in your county and your sub-county. So how best can you celebrate the child? How can we all contribute to improving the status of children? We are thinking of issues, crises, challenges that children are facing every day. We've talked about online here. We've talked about child abuse, sexual abuse. We are thinking also of issues that are coming up like suicide and depression. So I think in this day, we don't want to hear of suicide. Yeah, we don't want to hear someone online saying, oh, this thing happened to me now, can I die? Can I do this? Yeah, let the young people know that there's the community or the people in Kenya or even the leadership in Kenya wants the best for them. We want them to live. The humanitarian organizations that are around there want them to have the best. So connect to your children officer, connect to someone that can be there to support you so that you can live a better life, or to schools where you can be able to gain some education. Yeah.
All right. A good way to end. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Pascal. And let's look forward to the Day of the African Child. I like the theme for this year, and I wish you all the best. And we'll be there to cover and tell children their stories as they tell us their stories, right? Thank you very much. And Ojwang Bernard and the Pumpkins, I guess is coming at the top of the hour with the pumpkin story, be telling us about the students and why they're graduates, but they have decided deliberately not to continue looking for white-collar jobs. And they've rented 3-acre farm where they're doing pumpkin farming. So Bernard will be coming at the top of the hour on NTV Sasa, plus a lot more. Thanks for watching NTV today. I'll be back at 1 with the news update for you. Have a good morning.